Hello, I'm Steve Maskery and welcome to Workshop Essentials. I'm making the back legs for my set of dining chairs, and I've started with some 2-inch oak which was in boards 10 foot long, and this is the tag end of one. So you can imagine just how heavy these were. I had to get a neighbour round to help me lift them onto some trestles so that I could bandsaw them into manageable sized pieces. I've got a stack of 12 blanks to make my legs from, plus a couple of spares, and I'm glad I've got the spares because I've needed them, quite frankly. The first one, I stuck my template. This was my template, made out from OSB. We'll talk more about the template in a minute. I stuck that to my blank, and I screwed it actually. I put 2 screws in where the joinery is going to go, and it wasn't rigid enough. Especially in the middle, there was enough flex to give me a rather poor surface finish actually on the router table. Plus the fact it was stained black. The figure on this might be lovely, but look at this. I've got all this blue-black stain. Now, if the whole board was like that, but it's just where I need to take a leg from. Now, I did treat this black staining with oxalic acid, and it did help, but it didn't get rid of it. And the moment I took a single final pass with a hand plane, all the black came back. So that oxalic acid didn't penetrate very far at all. And that's unacceptable, I can't use that. But I will use it for machine setup for cutting my mortises. The second one I tried, I stuck the template down with double-sided tape all the way along. And that was much better in terms of surface finish. But I managed, oh no, that's a good one. Where's the one I messed up? Here we are. I took a chunk out by going against the grain just a little bit too much at this end. And also, this had got shakes. Shakes in the surface, I can deal with that because I can fill them. But shakes in the side like this, no, that's unacceptable. So I've got 2 dodgy ones, if you like, that will be useful for machine setup, but they won't end up on the chairs. Which means I've got no spares now, actually. I can't afford to cock up. The other thing happened on that second one, when I took the template off, which had been stuck down with double-sided tape, I broke it. I broke it there. Double-sided tape is great, but it's not easy to get off. So I think the secret is to use just as much double-sided tape as you need, and no more. So I've made a stronger template. So this is the one I'm using now. It's 3/4 inch MDF, 18mm MDF, and this is good. This is good. And I've done one so far, this one here, and okay, the surface finish isn't good enough to polish straight off the machine, but it will only take a little bit of sanding to get that right. It's very nice. 1 down, 11 to go. And I've got no spares, so I can't afford to mess up. So how does this work? Well, we have a template. We bandsaw to the template as close as we can, and then we flush trim it. So the first thing to do is to stick our template to the workpiece like that. Bit there. A bit there, and so on. That's better. So now we'll just clamp it in the vise to make sure that it's properly bonded. There we go. And then it's over to the bandsaw. There's a backboard, a vertical backboard, which is bolted to my main fence here. And then an arm which can be adjusted up and down according to the thickness of my workpiece. And there's a little key in there which stops it twisting. And then at this end there is a notch, and the blade sits inside that notch. So if I put my finger against the end of the fence, it's still away from the blade. Not by very much, of course, but it's away. And that is going to give us just a little bit spare on our workpiece that we can flush trim on the router table over there. I'm using a cutter that's got two bearings. You don't use them both at the same time, of course, but half of this is going to be routed using the template at the bottom, running against the bottom bearing here, and then I shall turn this over and drop the cutter a bit so that I'm using the top bearing for the other two quarters. And in that way, I'm cutting with the grain all the time. That's the idea. So, some ears. And fingers crossed. Sometimes it matters which order you cut the tapers in, and I've done this particular one the wrong way round. It's not the end of the world, but it does make life a little more difficult. I've cut the first taper, and that was fine. And then when I've come to cut the second taper, the way that I want to trim it to be with the grain is from here towards the tip. But that means that I've got to have the template on the top. So I use the top bearing against the top template. That isn't the problem. The problem is this: because I've already cut that first taper on that side, my workpiece can tip like this. And I've just got to be careful that I don't let that happen. It's not the end of the world, because even when that's pushed down, I'm still in contact with the bearing. But it's a little bit less stable than it was. So I've just got to be careful, that's all. Right, let's try it then. That was fine. That was fine, actually. I've got a little bit of a bump there because my template isn't lined up perfectly with the edge, but I can do that with a bit of sandpaper. So, one down, 12 to go, 11 to go. I can't count. Well, that's not bad. I've discovered I got a little tiny kink in my template, so I'm going to have to do something about that before I do any more. But that's not bad. That'll take a bit of sanding, But that's rather lovely, actually. I'm pleased with that. And this top end I'm going to do by hand so I don't risk wrecking the short grain there. Very nice, Steve. What a mess. Well, that's the last one, and I'm very glad. This has taken me forever. There's been two problems. One, my eyesight is going, and I can't wear my contact lenses for very long these days, 3 or 4 hours. I've had enough. So I'm doing this in short shifts in the workshop. Everything I want to do in life that requires being able to see has to be done in the 3 or 4 hours a day that I can wear my lenses. So this has taken me over a week to do. And the other problem is that I've not been getting the sort of quality of finish that I expected to. I started off using this, which I've had for years. It's Chinese, it's cheap and cheerful. It probably needs sharpening. It's not obviously worn, there's no nicks or anything, but I've had it a few years and I wasn't getting a good surface finish. So I splashed out on a posh one from Wealden. It's got a shear cut. So you should get, and indeed sometimes I do get, a beautiful clean surface. And with bearings top and bottom, it means I can always cut with the grain. Use the bottom bearing when the template's on the bottom, use the top bearing when the template's at the top. But I'm getting some bumps, and in particular, a funny sort of bump when I turn it over. I couldn't understand why this was. And it turns out that I've got two problems. One, the axis of my router is not truly vertical compared with the base plate. It leans slightly. So that means that if it's not 90 degrees, it's off half a degree, say, in that direction. And then when you turn it over, it's off half a degree in the other direction. So that's why you get the bump. And I've tried shimming it, and it's better, but it's not right. But the bigger problem is that my router table is not flat. It was flat when I made it, but it's sagged. And if I put a straight edge across here, I can see daylight underneath, a millimetre maybe not quite a millimetre, but a lot anyway. And that has important repercussions for the support of a curved template like this. If it was flat, it wouldn't matter very much. But because it's curved, when it's like that, it's supported here, and it's supported here, and it's not supported here. There is a gap, which means it can move. Can you see that? It can wobble. And it's that wobble that's been giving me my poor surface finish. So I've got quite a bit of cleaning up to do. And in fact, I've damaged one. It sort of twisted. When the weight is up the end and I'm working up here, this really is not very stable at all. And I've taken a chunk out of it and I've got no spare stock. So I'm going to have one leg. I can lose some of it in the taper, but I can't lose it all in the taper. So I'm going to have to do some very careful spoke shave work to try and blend it. But it's probably best part of 2 millimeters. And this is only 30 millimeters thick at that point. So you're going to see 2 millimeters on 30, unfortunately. So I'm very glad that this is over. Very glad that it's over. But the ones that have come out right look very nice indeed, actually. Yes, I'm pleased with that. And the other advantage of taking forever to do this is that it's given me time to think. And I've been thinking about the joinery in particular. And I've changed my mind about how to do that compared with what I'd originally planned. So I'll tell you all about that next time. Thank you very much for watching. Until the next time, enjoy your workshop. Like, subscribe, and share. Cheerio. If you've got any questions, leave me a comment below. And please remember to like, subscribe, and share. It's the only way this work gets seen.